had the Herkimer this morning, and I decided not to with the storm going on.
Well, welcome back.
I was gonna sit at the office and get some work done instead of coming over, and I thought, somebody's gonna see me there.
Well, I was hoping to get your pay for a day.
He was counting the money.
He's been doing vocal exercises all morning to share the meeting.
Yeah,
Pounding his table.
I wanna go buy a new boat too, you know?
Wow.
Privilege of the floor. Good morning, Marcus.
Gordon, how are you?
Good. We received our minutes from our January 3rd meeting. Is there any additions and or corrections?
And then make a motion to accept as presented.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Page 7, treasurer's report.
Okay, 91,000, page 7, yeah. 91,000-ish per month is break even. We're averaging about 87, so like that, this will obviously catch up and self-adjust. So we seem to be on target for revenue as we normally would be. Expenses seem to be in control and potentially even lower than projected, 87,000. Per month is break even, we're averaging about 78,000. So we're doing a little bit better, spending less and more or less on target for earning what we projected. If you go to page 8, 9, and 10, those are snapshots of the different bigger programs, ag, marketing, and safety. Again, those are all more or less on target to achieve what has been budgeted. And as, like last year, there could be a small amount of proceeds left over in any or all of those that go back to the general fund. Page 11, balance sheet. Our quick assets are down about 64,000. Our AR is down about 31,000. These are from prior period, prior month. So our total current assets are down about 37,000. Excuse me. Total assets are down also about 37,000. Total liabilities are down about 34,000, and total capital is down about 3,000. Page 12. Just a snapshot of the various loans. Basically, our receivables there are about 27,000 higher than the prior month. And that part of the treasurer's report, I had a couple questions on some of the cash receipts and some of the checks. Some names I hadn't seen before. I actually probably assumed like the New York Dairy registered 5,000. That's for that program coming out.
That's, yes, that's some money is collected.
I assumed as much. Fort Jones Regional 5,000, is that a sponsorship or is that some other event? It's on page 18, fourth check down. It says Fort Jones Regio, I'm assuming it's our FDRLO.
That's the drum country business.
Okay, so I hadn't seen it showing up before.
Oh, it's 17.
Then at the very bottom, check 4393, the second from bottom, says quality product. I don't know what that is.
Quality production, that'd be.
Quality production.
PBS television.
Okay, I hadn't seen
Yeah,
that.
that's for doing the video.
And on a similar vein, on page 19, check 4398, PBS 500. I'm sure that's for either advertising.
It's advertising,
That's a routine.
Hadn't seen it showing up, or I forgot about it, so I thought.
Well, those would have been first, because I mean, it's not a regular expense, but it depends on doing the video that Mark is working on.
Thank you for those questions. So I guess with that, I would make a motion to accept the brief report as presented.
Second.
Questions? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Manufacturing, Dave?
We just submitted an application for another round of safety training for 2019 and 2020, starting September, October next year. So we submit for 20,000. We'll see what we end up, they'll announce those typically in May. We usually get less than what we request, just because they've got more requests coming in than they can fund. And usually they'll make an award, then they go through and they realize they made more than they actually have, and they go through kind of, okay, we're reducing everybody by 0.02% or something like that, so we'll see what happens. The current program, we've had about 8 sessions so far, averaging about 12 people per session. We've had about almost 100 folks attending those, and we've got some big ones coming up.
The grant would be for this year's training?
No, so we already have a grant for this year's training.
So it's for next year?
So it's for training. So usually the contract runs from August 1 through July 31st each year. So applied for will be for funding beginning, September, October, then running through the July. So right now, we're spending the 14,000 plus grant we got last year. We've got a meeting coming up, actually I have a call later today with JCC, but we're trying to set up a program for our manufacturers on apprenticeships for March 1st. And the date on funding is available and assistance help make those apprenticeships happen easier. And something else. Those are the main things.
Okay. Any questions for Dave? Marketing? Where'd Marshall
He
go?
was here.
There is a good marketing.
Oh, you're up. Sorry. Good morning, everyone. Wanted to bring up a couple of things I got going on here. Number one, the facts and figures video that we're working on to accompany our story, Jefferson County story video piece. We have the design of the piece in place, we have the script and the video. The last part that we're working on is the actual facts and the figures that we want to use to give us the most value of the piece. We've gone back and forth a lot on what exactly we want to use. We're going to go with about 7 pieces of information focused on local assets, Fort Drum, some critical things, but we actually have a lot of good things to talk about. We want to make it too much and we don't want to make it too little, so we're kind of getting those narrowed down. And also, I'm also engaging all of our local stakeholders here on this, not just us, other economic development agencies regionally. Continue to be working on with Agbotic on energy issues for phase 2 of their project. This does have a potential of 35 jobs. I'm sure everybody heard all about it. And we do have a meeting tomorrow with National Grid, which is including local stakeholders as well as some local developers, so everybody kind of knows what's going on regarding that energy issue. Euromarket, we have 55 targets that we're narrowing down, based on feedback from them, from the Pro Food Show, dairy, agriculture, supply chain, beverage, food manufacturing, that kind of thing. One of the reasons why I was happy to go early, North Country was named the 2019 Great American Defense Community by USAA and the Defense Communities Board. This is a big deal, and we're working with FDRLO, Tri-County Region administrators and stakeholders from Fort Drum on how best to roll out this honor. We had a couple of different ideas. Possibly, there are going to be some VIPs from DC that will be coming up in June. Probably going to do something with the Armed Forces Day Parade, which has a lot of synergies and makes a lot of sense. And then we also have a built-in crowd, which is critical to these things, getting as many people there as possible. And also, we've secured Pierre Cleroux, who's the VP and Chief Economist of the Business Development Bank of Canada, for our Economic Development Summit. This guy is an amazing presenter. Dave and I have heard him speak at the Leeds Grenville Economic Development Summit in Canada on 2 occasions. It's going to be a date in April, and we're going to use this event to springboard an economic development series of events engaging local communities, business leaders, and stakeholders. Pierre focuses on economies of border communities in Canada and how policy from both sides of the border can affect them. This guy is really a big get for us as a speaker, and the event is going to be themed on cross-border business and how best to leverage that for growth and tourism. So, anybody have any questions? Sorry. Yes.
Agbotics, is that site specific you're talking with National Grid about? Because when I last
No.
talked to Jay, he was looking at, they were trying to find a location somewhere in the county.
No, this is just for meeting kind of the big picture. Okay, there's limitations to the infrastructure, where are the limitations, where do you have capacity, and what are the options, what's their 5-year plan? So it's not a project-specific meeting, but kind of focused on.
Location.
This one is different.
I'm talking
Agbotics
location.
specifically, we have, and we gave them a number of, Jay and I worked together on this, a spreadsheet of potential locations for them that might fit from a size and infrastructure perspective. However, they were focused on their one spot. We're having issues finding a good spot in the area based on energy capacity and cost of bringing it down from the larger 125 kV poles. I don't know if, and because of substation issues as well. So it's more regional specific and trying to make sure that they're, number one, stay in Jefferson County, number two, in our area, and prevent them from going somewhere else with this phase 2 project.
Well, I mean, we've heard about the energy issues related around the other parks and what's available, so
Yeah.
I didn't.
So this ties into the whole problem. I mean, phase 1 is gonna gobble up an enormous amount of power. The ones that they have, they're gonna be bringing online here shortly. And that just basically furthers, and if it comes off that, Coffeen Street substation, or circuit, excuse me, because I sometimes I get these terms confused, but if it comes off the Coffeen Street circuit, it's a problem.
Now, do they use natural gas? Are they a natural gas user at their current location?
No, they have, they're bringing it in, and they have 3-phase there now, but they want natural gas because it's the most efficient way. I mean, they could use gas-fired generators and bring in tanks of any number of substrates, you know, propane, natural gas, whatever.
I didn't know if natural gas was up that road or not.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I don't believe so.
But still, if they're gonna do that, call it phase 2 expansion, their energy requirements, they've gotta have natural gas
They need to have natural gas.
along with power.
Yep. It's, I mean, they're talking, you know, they'd like a, they're good saying they need a 10 megawatt substation, which would be bigger than the one that they have at Great Lakes.
And this expansion is being motivated by market potential.
I'd rather not comment on what their business motives are. They have a number of different things in the irons in the fire. But I mean, it's basically I mean, they want to build the appropriate amount of square footage to make that business work. Because I think probably, you know, it's one thing with 125,000 square feet, you know, but with 500,000 square feet, it starts to be scalable and make sense. So.
Are they submitting license for campus?
I do know that they have a license now for hemp production of some level. I don't know, because I know that there's a number of different licenses, but I do know that, and that's public knowledge, that they have one now, currently. Yeah.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh. I think it was last year you went to a trade show, food show.
Yep.
You had a couple very elevated leads and
Yep.
and then some mid-tier, though, some of those still active?
Yep.
They on the
The
list that
big
you
three are,
mentioned? Okay.
the other ones I can't, there's no response.
Okay.
And it's been, the other ones I about every other month, I either get something from them or I send something to them. They're, you know, and it's all positive. Yeah, we're doing this, but we're not ready yet. You know, just stay in front of me, that kind of stuff.
Okay. So their timing is within 3 years, but
Probably.
not immediate.
Not immediate. And it was a within 5 years last year
Okay.
kind of thing, so,
Fair enough.
yeah. Anyone else have any other questions? I'm sorry about being short. I'm going over to that Defense Communities meeting here in a few minutes, and I appreciate it very much, so.
Thanks, Marshall.
Thank you.
One quick question.
Sure.
Designation for Forest Round, is that a yearly event? Does that go on every year?
Yes, yep.
So they're really kind of moving it around.
Yeah, they pick, and it's not just Army, it's the Association of Defense Communities. And FDRLO put it in the application to be nominated. But they pick 5, but it's across all the services.
So it's not a case where you resubmit next year and try and get it again scenario?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah. This is a nice designation for us.
Sure.
You know, anything positive that has to do with Fort Drum.
For 1 year.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome, so.
But we've gotten other things within the Army from year to year. We've had a silver and bronze award, where they, I forget what they call it, like the something community, whatever. I don't think the Army has their own kind of recognition. So all that's good when the Army's looking to make a cut at some point, when we have community support.
So with that designation, Jefferson County is ahead of all the other service branch, side our bases, right? Air Force, Navy.
Yeah, there's five,
Is
they picked
cool.
four or five this year.
Five, I think.
And I can't remember how many were, it's not necessarily one from each branch, but they're a mixture of branches.
Yeah,
5 in the state or?
Across the country.
across the country.
But the other nice thing, they produce a little video that kind of highlights the community, so we'll have stuff too down the road if we need to show the value of Fort Drum. Community partnership with Fort Drum. It gives us some materials to be more.
It's on the website too, and it has the announcement, you know, it shows you where you can click, and it's right on the main, can't miss it on the website, so.
Have you shared, like on public television, I noticed that the area was on the second spot,
That's theirs.
but it's our economic development local at the end of
Yep. They cut it up to use as for spots for them, which was part of the deal.
They put filler sometimes.
Filler,
Their
you know, that's the 19-second thing. It's certainly not a bad piece. It's just a short little thing.
But we don't pay for it.
But we don't pay for it. But that's not our video that we're going to be rolling out. That's just a commercial. And again, which is a positive thing. But it doesn't, to me, it doesn't tell our story. I don't want it to, and like the larger piece does. And we're going to be rolling that out. It's on the real one's on our website now. It's not featured prominently by design quite yet, but we have to get this other one done first.
That's a nice supplement.
It is a nice, I mean, again, you know, all publicity is good publicity to a certain extent. But we went back and forth a number of times on that because they were trying to do it pretty quick, and we had to get that script right. So at least it has some benefit. So, yeah.
Thanks, Marshall.
All right, thank you.
Jay?
Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing this morning? Not too bad. The snow has stopped for a day, so,
In Jefferson County.
yeah.
I was headed to Herkimer this morning.
Oh, no, not a good place to go. If you would pass those around. First thing I'll report on, and I had sent you a note last week prior to what we had planned for a meeting. We're putting together the plans for the Jefferson County Agricultural Development Conference. I believe this is pretty much the same thing that I sent you. We have 2 national level speakers this year. It's the first time we've been able to bring in 2 speakers. Mary Carnegie is from DFA. She is their Vice President of Government Relations. She will be coming in to speak about what's happening inside the Beltway, what the atmosphere is like, and how it's impacting agricultural legislation. I think that will be a very interesting presentation given the current climate in Washington. So I'm looking forward to her presentation. The other person that is coming in is Sean Hackett. Sean is a financial consultant who also takes a look at climatology and how that is related to agriculture, how it's going to impact agriculture. He comes highly recommended by Ron Robbins. Ron has a think tank of agricultural agency type leadership that meet every year down in Florida. And they paid to have Sean come into their group. And Ron recommended that I use him for our program. I've had the opportunity to talk to Sean a couple times now, and I think it'll be a very interesting and informative and entertaining presentation. So I'm very excited about. Beth Meyer is more of a known entity. She's our kickoff speaker in the morning, and she'll be more of the toolbox type person, giving participants some tools to walk away with to improve communication for agricultural issues. So I'm very excited about the program. We already have 3 sponsors on board. And that is since I reached out to you last week. We have Great Lakes Cheese. We have Afratech, which is the amino mix manufacturer over on, oh good Lord, Willow, I believe it is, Willow Ave. And we also have Midway International Logistics over here on Bradley are all large sponsors of the program. Still trying to do some fundraising to defray as much cost as possible, but excited to have all of them on board. So the Ag Conference is coming together, trying to get everything posted up on our website, and then I'll be doing a big public release of information on it. So that'll be March 22nd at the Hilton Garden Inn, and I hope to see all of you there. Lunch is free, sort of. We do have it in our budget. Part of it anyways. Other than that, we have a variety of different things going on. We have a new lead that we are following. I can't publicly say what the business is yet, but it would be a small startup here in Jefferson County. If it comes to fruition, it's an individual coming in from California, purchasing some property in the northern part of the county to start a small startup business. That would be very beneficial to our agricultural industry, something we've needed for a long time here in the county. So we've got our fingers crossed that this does actually pan out. I mean, this literally started happening just over a week ago. So we're pretty excited about that. I've spent the past couple of weeks visiting a lot of different individuals to talk about Jefferson County agriculture. Very interesting, went down and met with Joe Nemi from Senator Schumer's staff down in Syracuse. We talked about the needs of Jefferson County agriculture, dealing with trade issues. I expressed my frustration that our trade agreements haven't solved the problem for our local wineries yet. And he was not aware of that particular issue, so I provided him information about the issue of how Canadians they can come buy it, but they can't bring it back across the border, wine, without paying extreme tariffs. So talked to Joe about that, talked to him about a foreign guest worker program, and that is a program that we need to be thinking about. So it was a good conversation and a good educational opportunity to let Joe know about issues, hopefully pass along to the senator. Also talked to the folks from Dairy Farmers of America to express our continued interest in partnering with them to bring in new manufacturing operations. We talked about the future of the dairy industry here in northern New York, and the need for dairy manufacturing. That is the most critical thing that we can work on, is to attract more dairy manufacturing to northern New York to support our dairy industry. Brad Keating is the vice president for the Northeast region for Dairy Farmers of America, and it was nice to be able to sit down with him and spend some time. Other than that, starting to work on Dairy Parade. Seems like it's a long ways away. It's not. I'm actually running a little bit behind on getting started on that, so I've got to get started here quickly. And that's it. Any questions?
Meat processing, any update?
Meat processing, Mike and I are still working on that, trying to pursue the opportunity to create that in the industrial park. The biggest challenge right now, the plants have been finished.
The agricultural.
Not in the industrial park.
The agricultural park, excuse me. To me, that's industry, but anyways, Yes. In the agricultural park, although Mike, no, I'm not gonna say that. In the agricultural park, yes, Mike is still pursuing that.
Will there be construction this year? Construction of road infrastructure in the park?
I believe you will see some. We did not get the grant for infrastructure from the state. So that is going to slow down that process. But I believe you will see Mike at least start some land clearing in the park. He does have other businesses that he's talking to that we are trying to assist with. Hopefully that will drive the construction process, but I hesitate to promise anything at this point. Mike is coming in on Friday. He's been away for a little bit. He's coming in on Friday and he says he's excited. He's got some opportunity. I'll find out what that is on Friday. So that's the best update I can give
Do I have to
you.
fill my freezer with meat now that we have a freshman congresswoman from New York City who wants to do away with all our cows?
You have the gentleman
You
from.
really want my opinion? I can't give it with the newspaper. No, no.
You have the gentleman from
Raising questions about.
New Jersey, too, that's running for
Yes,
president.
As I said, we will have Mary Carnegie here in March to talk about the current atmosphere in Washington. And both in Washington and in Albany, agriculture needs to keep a very close eye on what's happening because the atmosphere has changed and it is not what I would call a favorable atmosphere for agriculture.
I mean, if they have their way, my diet will go a lot better. But
You and I both, you and I both.
it's just, you sit there and you see these people on national TV saying some of the dumbest things. You know, Cory Booker talking about eggs or something the other day. What world does he live in? He's a vegan.
He's a radical vegan, yes. And
It's just,
when I
how
say,
do they expect not only to feed our people, but feed people across the world that we do? With
well,
that
we won't
type of
have to worry about that because we'll be going back to all ocean transport, which removes a lot of the perishable products from being exported.
I mean, it's just insane to watch some of the stuff coming out of Washington elected officials talking about their vision of agriculture in the future.
Well, if you had the opportunity to sit with my son and I in the morning and watch the morning national news broadcasts, he could tell you about me having my head explode frequently. When, I'll just say this and not answer any more questions. In regards to global warming and climate control, many studies show that the more efficient we make agriculture, and I'm not saying large, I'm just saying the more efficient we make agriculture, the less carbon footprint we have. Maybe those studies aren't right because there's studies that show opposite. But I think we get a little over the top sometimes. So,
It'd be good, coming back to trying to understand that, and when you see that main media, and you think, my God, you know what's going on? I look around the room, we're all baby boomers, and we really need to get outside of our comfort zone and go jump into the millennials' frame of mind, and realize that's reality. As much as we think is fiction, it's, some of it, much of it is reality of what's gonna drive a lot of consumer spending, especially in the food categories in the future. And once you do that, my introduction to it is, it's not, they aren't as crazy as we think they are. So, you know,
all I'll say
wouldn't go
is
that
if they're gonna, I'm wondering how they're gonna get across country
Jay-
to Washington without planes.
Yeah, Jay, and we're gonna have a slight discussion here because the pressures that the new minimum wage, what are we seeing in the dairy, you know, or the agricultural industry out there, the pressures on wages with, 70 cents an hour increase every year is,
Right.
to me, is not sustainable.
Right. They did give an agricultural minimum wage deal, I'll call it, so that it wasn't as drastic for agriculture. But even with that, our dairy farms, here's the bottom line. And this is what, if you'll excuse my language, pisses me off. Our dairy farms do not set their own price for the product they sell. They cannot change the price to accommodate artificial minimum wage increases. So when you take a time when the dairy industry is going through this new cycle, the new reality, if we will, of instead of a 3-year cycle on prices, now we're on going into year 5, and there is still no light at the end of the tunnel of when prices will start to come up above cost of production. I mean, I'm talking, we could be year 6 next year of no change in this low price cycle. I mean, Ed, if you disagree, please say so. John, please say so.
Well, I
But right
think- I
now,
think what's gonna drive it is whether we can get the export business back. we
Right.
lost. You know,
Right.
That's the difference between low money, high money, really, at the end of the day.
so with that said, to have farms forced to pay higher wages is ludicrous.
But
So,
they're gonna be forced anyways, because when you have a fast food place that's paying $15 an hour and the farm paying $10 or $11 an hour, that's a draw on the possible workers that you can have out there in the farm.
sure.
They already have problems getting workers, don't they?
Oh, yeah.
Most farms have to pay more than the minimum wage. to get-
Oh, yeah,
So,
you know, certainly if like my son, my son did not get paid minimum wage. He made more than minimum wage working at Old McDonald's Farm last summer. So he's an example, high school student, he's already making a little bit more than minimum wage because they wanted him to work there. A milker usually comes in, you know, an average of $1 or $2 more than minimum wage when they're milking cows. But the more, I say that, but I'm hesitant to say that because people will say, oh, well, then what's it matter? Well, what's it matter is it pushes everything up. Subway in Adams, the owner's a good friend of mine. When he bought Subway in Adams, he could cash flow. He wasn't making a ton of money, but he could cash flow the operation. When they started these minimum wage increases, he raised the price of his sandwiches $1 each to try and accommodate the minimum wage increases. But now the price of his product is going up, so it still didn't work. He is now closed purely because of minimum wage. Purely because of minimum wage. We have dairy farms that cannot afford to do business, and the more that price goes up, it's all throughout agriculture. Yes, sir.
Did farms receive any exemption from that Family Leave Act? I know it affects farms or businesses of a certain size, but did farms get an exemption from that, or? I think it's 40 or 50 employees, I forget what the threshold was, but.
It affects everybody.
Did it
yeah.
affect every business? I thought that was one that had a threshold.
I got 11 employees.
Okay.
The
I wasn't sure.
the federal one has a threshold, New York stuff.
I'm not aware of an exemption. Ed,
Okay.
were you
Because that's
aware of
another
any
one that,
exemption?
it's not a small number.
No.
I take it out of
But
my
I'm
check every
competing
week.
against out-of-state labs.
Right.
National out-of-state labs.
The other thing that we
It's in the courier service.
that we have to be aware of here in New York is for years, we have been able to fight off the farm labor omnibus bill.
is that the?
Collective bargaining and everything. We've been able to fight that off. Right now, our best hope is that we can achieve some degree of compromise. It will happen.
Why don't you have Andy Cuomo come do a photo op right in the middle of the manure pile? He loves to come before Trump, talk about all the good things. Why doesn't he come see some of the negative stuff that he's occurring up here?
I have to work with everybody.
The two-state solution is unbelievably important. And I have no love lost for Mr. Cuomo or whatever the heck his name is, but
I have to work with everybody,
yeah, I know you.
as somebody smartly reminds me every once in a while.
Thanks, Jay.
So, but anyways,
Before I do
it's,
Well,
A quagmire.
as I said,
There comes a point in time where you have to tell the reality whether or not it offends our elected leaders or not. I mean, this is ridiculous. We just saw Convergence, and I don't know if we're supposed to talk about
Consent.
that. Concentrus.
I think they changed their name again.
They do,
Yeah.
consent.
We saw what occurred there.
Yeah.
And what we've heard is directly related to the minimum wage and the cost to put a person in a seat in New York State.
The swimmer company over Dexter that closed here a few months back too.
And
well, Rob had an idea during the loan review.
we can talk about it when we were gonna get to there, but I understand what you're getting at, but I just wanna say at some point, Jay, you have to let your head explode in front of the elected officials so they understand what's happening. And I think Rob is close to that point right now, so maybe.
I'm beyond that point.
But, you know.
You don't want me
it's,
writing a PC.
There was a thing about, on the news the other day where they had a Subway owner that had 6 franchises out in probably the worst state to do business, but in Seattle area, where they had 5, they're now down to 2 because of what they did with minimum wage in Seattle and the cost of doing business.
a lot of my focus with youth, to educate about agriculture is now geared, I don't wanna say it that way. Cause that's right about the millennials. And they have a reality, and it is what it is. I look at my son's generation, and I'm trying to educate them about agriculture. And I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Jay.
What happened, you talk about the millennials, and we grew up going to school and putting our hand over our heart and saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Your little Muslim kids over in, they grow up hating Westerners, and they learn from this high up. Our kids and grandkids have been indoctrinated in the school systems that global warming's gonna destroy the earth and everything that our generation has done is bad. And that's because they hear that in school, and they haven't heard enough from our generation that says, no, slow down. And it's a scary thing. I'm worried about my kids and grandkids.
They hear it all the way through college, Dave.
And they start in grade school, right up through.
My scouts,
Not in grade class.
my scouts say the Pledge of Allegiance every meeting.
Yeah.
They lead it.
I feel sorry, in agriculture, the minimum wage issue affects the migrant labor force. Most employees in agriculture today are paying well above minimum wage. For the people that farms are trying to recruit back, whether they're operators or managers, you don't get anybody for less than $15 an hour.
Oh,
And if you wanna retain them, you're gonna have to find a way that they can make $50,000 a year from the farm, or they going somewhere else. That's that pool of agricultural labor. The minimum wage really affects those milkers and the migrant workforce. That has an impact, but in relation to, you look at 1% of the population as farmers, you take out the dairy sector of that, and you're looking at maybe 100,000 businesses around the country, or not 100,000, but 1,000. Well, yeah, 1,000 or 1,500 larger dairy farms probably employing 80% of all the migrant workers on the farms today. That's a bite for them. But bigger than that, I think if you were to ask them, they'd say, in New York State, you cut that out, and you're down to maybe less than 100 producers that are really dealing with that minimum wage issue. You compare that to the food service industry. The food service industry is where it's getting killed. It's going on.
And it's killing every industry.
But again,
The
remember,
farmers could deal, I think, in reality, if you got them to confess, maybe behind closed doors, we can deal with the minimum wage issue, solve our immigration issue, so that at least we can get workers. If we have to pay them $10 or $11, we'll find a way to do it. So that's their bigger issue.
But when it drives I'm a small business, and I can't imagine every small business being able to go out there and take every one of their employees, whether they're making $12 or $13 an hour, or like mine, making $18 or $20 an hour, and give them 70 cents an hour raise every year.
The restaurant.
I have techs that are making $20 an hour. They were making $20 an hour when minimum wage was $8.50.
That's my problem.
And
as well.
it drives and drives and drives, and my business feels it. New York Air Brake feels it. I'm sure Great Lakes, everybody in New York State feels it because,
Rising tide raises all.
and even in my business, everybody says, "Wow, just raise your prices." That's what Kent says. You got to raise your prices. The problem is, I have labs around the country that are sending couriers through this area on a daily basis, picking up. They're paying their techs $12 and $13 an hour, while I'm paying my techs $20 an hour. And they don't have all the other stuff that New York,
well,
and that is a huge, huge pressure on my business.
that we run into the same thing in dairy, because
Exactly.
the cost of production is less in many other areas of the country for dairy production. Because we're in New York, it's a lot higher, and it's not right.
And when you take and you add the New York workers' comp on there, which is 10 to 20 times higher than surrounding states, not just my pet peeve. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you very
I
much.
guess Dave said the bucket's full too.
I got everybody going, it's like a little pull
You know-
start on a lawnmower.
I agree.
As it should.
Let me put it right as, I don't agree with him a lot, but as Jeff Graham will say many times, until you sign the front of a paycheck, you don't understand what really happens, and it's true. I watched my profits go away. Well, there we go.
Well, but
So-
coming back to course of action, I was proposed within the agency to draft a letter recognizing, the impact of minimum wage, so.
I was gonna bring that up in the IDA.
Well, actually,
That was- Is it LDC?
It should come from the LDC.
Yeah,
It should
it
come
came
from
up
the
with
economic,
overview.
it should come from this board if we're gonna do it.
I know Don did send, I think he sent a draft around to all of us.
I do.
My only comment was, I felt it was a good opportunity to do two things: build a bridge and create a larger population. Because we call our labor markets in Lawrence, Lewis, and Jefferson County. I think we could include Oswego County and maybe collectively get both the legislative bodies and the IDAs together and get some common things. The things that affect us might be somewhat tangentially related to, I believe, St. Lawrence and Lewis for sure. But Oswego may
We're all
have
interconnected.
a couple different issues, but I guarantee in our area, north of the Thruway, we are not part of New York State, as Andy Cuomo calls New York State. We are the second state. We're the second-class citizens. We're the exporters of all the durable goods, all of the resources, and I don't have the fact to prove this, but I guarantee we put a hell of a lot more into state commerce than we take back out. That's just my gut feeling, and maybe you've got the facts
Look
to
at our
prove
energy
that.
production.
But, I don't know, that was my feeling, is that rather than us taking the lead, not that we want to create another committee, but reaching out to your colleagues in their legislative bodies and see if we can collectively almost revolt. I don't use that word loosely, but with quotation marks. And I think, as Paul said, until you actually get a massive population telling the elected officials that you're harming the population that you serve, they don't care.
Well, you gotta, I read the letter Don sent out. My first comment was, our local officials and elected officials in Albany understand what's happening and what this is, but they can't change anything. It's a different world, and it's only gonna get worse with one party controlling all three legislative branches. I talked to John coming in, they wanna ban gun raffles. Do you know how many organizations raffle guns to fund their organization to keep stuff off of property taxes? Now, whether you like guns or not, that's one thing they're doing. And when you look at everything else that's proposed, it's only gonna get worse. And I agree, I think you gotta get a large geographic region to start standing up.
And I didn't honestly read the letter in great detail, so I don't have a specific comment on the letter. I felt this was a great bridge, at least locally. We talked about getting closer to the Jefferson County Board of Legislators, and I think if we reach out to some of your colleagues, our labor market, maybe even include Oswego County, because I think they have a fairly significant industry that, again, supports the state. I mean, they're a large energy exporter, as well as probably many other things, apples. I mean, I can think of a number of things. I'm not trying to promote Oswego County. They work for this area, but.
More strategically, this organization has been reluctant to step into the political arena in any big way, for a variety of reasons. And they were all valid reasons, by the way. But what I think I'm hearing now is a somewhat change of position, which is we should engage in some dialogue on issues that we believe affect our small business. And I have strongly supported that. I think if we don't do it, I don't know who is going to do it. Workforce Development Board is anxious to join us. We've reached out to our statewide organization. I sent an email off to Ryan last week about this very same issue. But if we don't recognize the problem and then take a stand, I'm just not sure that we can claim we're victims. We have to be a part of this process.
No, I agree, and I'm not advocating you let Dave or I write the nasty. No, would write, but I guess.
I wouldn't write it.
And I'm not advocating we legislate, but if we don't control a conversation or create a conversation.
Exactly.
X, Y, and Z are harming us, and we were put in business to develop this type of economy.
Exactly.
These are the economies, and this is hurting us, and this is, if we don't point out facts and actually
Exactly.
get a discussion going, create a discussion, control the discussion.
You're absolutely right.
Right
That's
now, there is
exactly
no
what I
discussion.
think.
That's all it is there is no discussion. Let our elected officials be the ones to argue and legislate and everything else. And you know, we have a senator that lives close to us, and a congresswoman that I think would also understand agricultural industries and pressures, seeing that the Plattsburgh area would be somewhat common to our area with regards to agricultural, I would assume.
If you
Yes.
understand that our political folks are responsive to what they believe their constituents are saying. Otherwise, they feel as though they're on if, for example, right now, if State Senator Patty Ritchie were to take a stand against increases in minimum wage, she would likely sense that people would say, whoa, gee, that's terrible, I need more money. So therefore, that's not a good position to take. On the other hand, though, if she hears an argument that is compelling, that says there are offsets to this question, and we need to consider those. I'm not saying we shouldn't increase minimum wage, but I am saying we should understand the impacts.
I think we just need to point out the cause and effect.
That's exactly
I mean,
right.
the letter shouldn't say the minimum wage increase is stupid. It should say it is affecting our major industries in this way and severely impeding any economic development and closing these types of businesses. If that message could be put out there, you can't argue facts. Now, I don't care how
That's
good a
the reason-
politician is, you can't argue facts.
I say, if you wanna have an impact and try and slow the freight train down and do it through some organized effort from this agency, I go back to what the forum that the restaurant had a year ago, or was it more, a year and a half ago? You remember? They had a collective meeting at either.
Oh, yes, I
They
do.
drew.
Yes, I do.
These were
About the
restaurant
tips and wages.
entrepreneurs
Mhm.
that came together, and it was a very public publicized, local meeting. That was media attention. It wasn't just a letter going to some official or the governor's administrator.
Exactly.
So, to me, if we want to try and approach this and do something for constituents, you jump outside of the agricultural field, because like I said, there's 100 producers, around the state. You gotta get to the bigger body. The fast food, the restaurant owners, they're the ones who are dramatic, along with David, along with everybody's business. And from there, you do a collective letter of support, or letter of opposition, or petition, or whatever.
It's merely, we're hearing from businesses, we're their point of contact, we work for the county, sort of indirectly, in a flow chart way. If we don't raise the concern, shame on us. That's kind of all I'm saying, and I think if we look at a labor market, and I'm kind of including Oswego, but including the 4 counties to collectively say, hey, this is all harming us in the same way, shape, and form, it creates a discussion.
I know
Will
of
it
no
go anywhere?
business,
Maybe not.
I know of no business or industry that isn't being in some way negatively impacted by what's going on. Now, the problem I worry about is never discussed, but let's take Dave's small business, because he raised the question. His profit margins are beginning to shrink now because of all of this. Well, what does that mean? That means he no longer has the investment capital he had to regenerate his business. And in your business, for example, this is an evolution constantly. If you don't stay current, you don't stay technologically savvy, you don't buy the best equipment and so on, you're falling farther and farther behind. So the insidious thing, we see the compression going on in the wage scales. That's the economist term. The compression going on, which is why we lost 28 jobs at Airbrake. Nobody talks about that. That's a big deal. New York Airbrake pays a lot more than minimum wage, but the compression of those wages caused them to have to shrink their workforce in order to stay in a competitive way. The impacts are significant, but if we don't call attention to this, who is going to? And I'm not suggesting we have the answers. I don't even say we necessarily offer the answers. I do think we have to call the
You
question.
need to draw distinction
So let's do the
draw
following.
attention to the problem, excuse me.
Exactly.
That's all it is, draw attention to the problems, and again,
If
I
we
look at
don't,
this
who does?
as a dual purpose. It's a great opportunity to work with our board of legislators, and we've all recognized we need to do that more often, and there's, I think, a common ground where there be no complaints amongst any of the persons in the room to collectively create a list of problems that don't yet have a solution.
You could do a forum and have a hearing. Set it up in a hearing, so every participant's have got 3 minutes at the microphone or whatever to show the impacts of how this has affected their business. And when they walk out the door, they can sign the letter.
The original discussion during, I think you remember, during loan review was that we would send a letter to our elected officials and ask for a meeting, call it a breakfast meeting, whatever, have representatives from this agency and other development agencies and other political jurisdictions and some businesses to talk about the problem, kind of lay it out, try to get some facts and figures which support what it is we're talking about here, so we're not just talking about an opinion, and then see where it goes from there. So the letter was couched as a very informal, we think we have a problem, these are our concerns, would you come together and we can talk about it? That was the way it was couched. I don't know if that's the right approach or not. I mean, it's up to you guys, but.
Just again, my only opinion was rather than having a singular entity draft it, work as a group, get some collective energy, get all of the information from what we call the labor market. I'm sure they assume us part of the labor market in their economic development, and an opportunity to work
Cheryl
together.
Mayforth is already deeply on board with this because she's probably the one that sees this first. We see it second, maybe.
Because otherwise, the state would then just be getting 5 or 6
Yeah, no, you
individual
have to
letters
broaden it.
versus,
No
oh my
question.
God, I've really upset the voters north of the
Yeah, no
through.
question.
Maybe they'll still end up
Well,
with a trash basket, but.
One of the problems is the majority of people in the state live in or near New York City.
Exactly.
All of us together
Currently,
remain
until we
a
split-
very
until we
significant
split.
minority.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, 3
All about
counties.
the votes.
Thanks to you.
I know, it is.
Cheryl was actually at Rotary yesterday and talking about how the Warren process works and talked about Convergys and how many have, were lost and and actually how many jobs were going overseas, and, I mean, she spelled it all out, and she said, isn't she supposed to be the first one to be
The warning,
notified?
she receives the
Normally,
warning.
she's not, and it's, in a lot of cases, that she's not, and, but I was impressed with their process in terms of how they have everything set to work with those people to help them find jobs. I was very impressed with
Yeah,
what
just
they
had her
do.
come, just in timing, we had an opening,
Yes.
just, you know, people to realize what does happen. They see,
But back
they
to
see the
Rob's
announcement, they
point,
don't really know what goes on.
It's about
Right.
getting 3 or 4 counties, the same type of agencies and same groups in 3 or 4
A
counties.
singular, loud
Oh,
voice
absolutely.
of the same message.
How
I
many-
absolutely agree with that.
How
We'll
many
send you all-
agencies like ours at their meetings are having the same discussion we are?
But we need
And
to
what
do-
we've gotta do is bring all those discussions together. Because I can tell you, sitting here in Watertown, New York is not much different than sitting in Canton or, you know,
Probably this weekend.
Oswego or
Part of this we have
anywheres.
Onto it, I also sit on, I represent us on the North Country Alliance, which basically covers the 7 counties in here in Plattsburgh, which
Yeah.
includes the economic development organization, the private sector, we just finished drafting up.
And that's probably actually a good sort
Yeah, I'll
of
send you-
geographical region, although I think it's harder to get beyond St. Lawrence County, honestly, just for a lot of reasons. It just-
Well, try to coordinate something, on that level, we really share the same issues from here over to Plattsburgh, but.
We share the same industries,
Trying
the
to get the
same
other-
geographical makeup,
Yeah.
and just everything north of the freeway is fairly similar.
Often, Rob,
Good.
this is about leadership. Somebody has to take leadership in getting essentially the ball started. And I think the question that I'm hearing now is this organization is willing to step in and take some of that leadership in a political way, and I
Merely
think
my
that's appropriate.
suggestion, I don't know if anybody has disagreed as a uniform body that this is a bad idea, but it came up in my review, I still think it's a good idea,
I
that we
think
at
we
least.
should be putting feelers out to see if the other agencies, other counties have
Yeah,
the
I
same
like
desires.
Dave's idea of the North, what do you call it,
North Country Alliance.
Alliance, yeah, I mean, that might be good to actually put out some feelers in a larger scale, but I think at least starting with the 4 counties,
As always.
Oswego, St. Lawrence, Lewis, and ourselves.
Yeah, let's do that.
There's a lot of common stuff.
And we can get back next month or whenever, keep it going. Very good.
Dave, just to add on a couple of community activities that we've been
Sure.
involved in the last month, the last week of January, we were actually one of the major sponsors of the Chamber's Economic Development Forecast Breakfast, which we typically, good turnout, good visibility for us. We hosted here February 1st, over the air break, Economic Development and Manufacturing Day as part of the Jefferson Leadership Institute. Jay had already done earlier in the year the Ag Day event, so we're pretty involved in that. They've got a pretty big class this year, about 24, 26 students. And then I just spoke this week, each week, actually, both Jay and I end up coming in separately. Sherry teaches business class at JCC, just has us come in and talk about, for me, it's what we do in our economic highlights of the area. And then Jay comes in to speak specifically about agribusiness, so.
Good. New business. Did we need to go through this 990 tax return?
Well, we need an indication that the board has reviewed it.
Okay.
The 990 and the state form, the CHAR 500, we should get that in the minutes.
It was in our packets, and looked at it, it seems to make sense.
That
You're
would-
not looking for a motion or anything, right? You're just looking for
Yes,
affirmation
no.
that we saw it?
You, that the board has,
Yeah,
you've
we
reviewed
saw
it.
We saw it.
Yeah, you've seen it.
Looks great.
Mr. Chairman, I move the approval of the IRS forms that we have reviewed.
And the 990.
The 990.
990.
And that's the IRS, CHAR 500 is the New York State.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries?
Should take a minute and review our compensation.
That was conspicuously blank.
Now that we know minimum wages out there, when we get that done.
Page 57. We've not done this resolution yet, correct?
That's correct.
We have resolution number 02.
This was just for approval because it's going to be for the IDA.
Yeah, it's actually an IDA
Yeah,
resolution.
this is just
We
more
don't-
for correspondence in the LDC packet,
Okay, so we don't have to.
on advice of Joe.
We don't have to,
I think the IDA, it's appropriate for the IDA to do it
Okay, I thought we had to do it in both, that's fine.
Well,
Actually, it's probably, as I think about it, it's probably not a bad idea.
Yeah.
All of the agencies,
Yeah.
because
I
we'll
move the
bill
amendment,
separately,
yeah, yeah.
so.
What's the correct term?
Amendment
Resolution,
engagement agreement.
I'll amend engagement with Conway Law Firm.
I'll correct it,
I believe.
I'll correct it to Barclay Damon. I'll second but correct to Barclay Damon for the record.
Sorry, Joe, I couldn't.
I know you couldn't.
so we have a motion, do we have a second?
I corrected it to Barclay Damon and seconded it.
For the record, he never even.
For the record.
Joe, why the idea as opposed to the LDC? Just curious.
I mean, we represent all three
Right, right.
agencies. I think we open our files generally under the IDA, but they're all sister agencies, so and the LDC funds it.
I would like to have the resolution in place here because if you get a check from the LDC, then we need to,
Right.
let's,
Yeah, that makes
I
sense.
think.
so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Anything else for the LDC? Motion to adjourn. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.